I always considered myself a healthy person, but a few years ago I started reading food labels and was completely shocked by some of the ingredients. That's when I decided I needed to become more aware of what I eat and where it comes from. On this episode of The Natural Princess, we'll dig into a vegetable that's gotten a bad reputation, the potato, a dreaded carb. First, we'll learn that in moderation, they contain some things that are good for our bodies. Then, we'll visit a small local family farm to uncover some colorful varieties. And finally, we'll be in the kitchen for a few easy and delicious recipes. With all the low-carb and no-carb diets out there, potatoes have become a really big no-no. But I have always been an everything in moderation kind of woman. So my question is, can we still be friends with the potato?
Potatoes are a really nutritious food, especially these heirloom variety potatoes. They have a type of starch which is more slowly released into the bloodstream, so they're fine for people who are dieting or for diabetics.
So what's your take on all of these low-carb, no-carb diets?
A lot of people use those diets because they do promote weight loss. But in general, to feel good, you need carbohydrates in your diet. Low-carb diets generally do help you lose weight, but you also have some side effects like constipation and higher cholesterol levels.
So what are some of the good things for us in potatoes?
Potatoes are high in potassium. They have 600 milligrams per serving, about 3 grams of fiber, 3 grams of protein, some trace minerals, some iron, folate, and a good amount of vitamin C.
If we eat potatoes, what are some good things that all those things can do for our bodies, like the potassium?
Yeah, potassium is really important for our heart health. We need to have more potassium in our diet than sodium, and for some people, too much sodium is linked with hypertension. So potassium is important to balance that. It's very important for our cardiovascular health.
So what are some of the other good things for us, especially in those heirloom varieties?
Well, this heirloom variety, blue potato, actually has antioxidants in it that are very similar to those found in blueberries.
And what can that do for our bodies?
Well, antioxidants are important for preventing aging, for our cardiovascular health, and for preventing cancer. And we're just learning to understand what all of these plant antioxidants can do for us.
So how many servings of carbohydrate should we have?
That really depends on who you are, how active you are, what stage of life you're in. But for most people, I would say anywhere from 3 to 5 servings of carbohydrates, as long as they're from whole foods.
Potatoes, we don't have to shun them. And now let's go play in the dirt at a small family farm and uncover some really fun varieties. You don't need a huge area to yield a wealth of potatoes. That's why we're here at Mountain View Farm, a small family farm in Kent, Connecticut, where they grow more than your average variety of spud. Tell us about the history of the farm and how you became a farmer.
This farm, Mountain View Farm, has been in my family since the late 1700s. I grew up with my father's mother, Elizabeth LaFontaine. I can remember from being a very young child hearing from her how important it was to stay natural and to stay in almost a closed circuit in which you're really living with the land, and what you're doing, if anything, you're just enhancing things and making things better.
How much acreage do you have?
There's 40 acres. We have it set up in plots. We have 5 different gardens, if you will, that are in the back here. As organic farmers, we have a strict rotation schedule that we have in place. This year, for instance, we have our potatoes in the our lower garden. Potatoes themselves bring their own pests if you grow the potatoes in the same soil every year. Well, our philosophy is to move the crop to prevent some of these things naturally without the use of chemicals.
So I'm a big proponent of encouraging people to eat locally. How do you encourage people to do that?
You can't beat something that's fresh and local. It's also important to consider that, yes, we do have seasons in Connecticut, and some things are in season at different times of the year, but you know, that's kind of what makes food special. When the crops are in season and when they're not, they haven't traveled that far to the market, you're really going to get your best fruit and vegetables.
So it's going to taste better.
Absolutely. Potatoes were originally from South America. They were smaller potatoes. They had color to them. They definitely had different texture.
Well, let's uncover some.
Okay. Well, let's show Alicia some Green Mountain potatoes. Abigail, you want to clean off, and Olivia, you want to clean off a couple of these plants. The Green Mountain, like I said before, is a late season potato. I think what was appreciated most about this variety is the fact that it's such a storage potato. If handled appropriately, allowed to dry a little bit, and then stored appropriately in a root cellar or in your basement, it really can last the entire season. This is a French fingerling called La Rat. It's sought after by chefs. It's a very consistent producer. This fingerling is definitely very popular at our markets, and it's wonderful tasting. It's really terrific roasted.
I like that the best, you know, simple. I mean, I can't resist a roasted potato, so.
It's a lot of fun digging fingerlings. You get all sorts of shapes and sizes. That's a great one. We'll find them that look like different animals and everything imaginable. This is the cranberry red. This potato is a mid-season potato. It's red on the outside and pink inside. If you cut one of these open, it's got a lighter pink color. It actually gets a little bit more intense when cooked. It's a wonderful tasting potato. All right, now this area, this is all blue. This is a neat looking potato. All blue is a mid-season potato. The plants are all dyed back. Colors are wonderful of this potato.
Oh, that's amazing. That one's really super bright. When people go and buy these at the farmer's market, do you have any tips for storage for them when they bring them home?
I'd say if you keep your potatoes in a cool, dry, dark place, they're going to store a long time.
All right. To find interesting varieties of ingredients, your small local farm may surprise you. Now let's get our potatoes in the kitchen and get cooking. Now it's time to get cooking. And let me just say, it was really difficult to narrow down my recipes because there's about 1 million things you can do with potatoes. But I've narrowed it down to my favorite flavor combinations. Up first is a lemon rosemary roasted potato, and we're going to use those purple potatoes. So what you want to do is, they're pretty small sized potatoes, so cut them in half. Maybe if they're a little bit larger, do wedges, or if they're really, really tiny, just leave them whole. So I'm just gonna slice these guys, and I just love this color. It's just so amazing. And I'm just gonna put them into my bowl over here. And my mom makes the best potato wedges. Just salt and pepper and olive oil. So this is a little homage to her. But I had to make it a little different because, well, I'm never gonna make it as good as Mom makes it. And while I'm chopping my potatoes, I have my oven preheating to 400 degrees. So now we're gonna take a fresh rosemary. If you don't have fresh and you only have dried, that's fine, but it's gonna be more intense with the dried rosemary, so maybe use just a little less, because I'm gonna need about 3 tablespoons of the fresh rosemary. I really like that rosemary pop in these potatoes. And I've got my fancy tool here, my Mezzaluna. And I'm just gonna strip off the leaves of my rosemary branches. And the way to do it is you hold the top and you pull backwards. And I just snap off the tops. It's usually really tender. There's something about rosemary and potatoes just makes my mouth water. And I'm just gonna add that to the bowl over there. Now, we're going to take 1 lemon and we're gonna zest it right into that bowl. And actually, I just used my microplane grater, bought it at a hardware store. And you wanna make sure that you don't go too far and get the white part of the skin, because then it's gonna be really bitter. You just really want the nice intense flavor that's in the oils in the outer layer of the skin. I think I got it all. And now we just need some olive oil and just a few good drizzles. You want to be able to toss this around with your hands and get everything nicely coated. And of course, a little salt and pepper too. And you can do this to taste. I typically, everyone tells me anyway, don't put enough salt on things, so do whatever feels right for you. Okay. Now comes the fun part. We're gonna toss all the potatoes and our rosemary and lemon in here. Okay, let's go wash your hands. I'm a firm believer in using your hands whenever possible. They're the best tools you've got. So now we're gonna pour out all of this potato mixture onto a baking sheet that's lined with foil. Makes for an easier cleanup that way. And you want to make sure you have enough surface area for all your potatoes. You don't want them to be piled on top of each other. Just turn them out. And we'll shake them out. And there we go, into the oven for about 20 to 25 minutes. It'll depend on the size that you cut your potatoes, but just check them. When they're fork tender and golden, they're done. I cannot wait for them to be done. And that's it. So don't these look amazing? And now we're just gonna add a little bit of extra virgin olive oil and a little salt. All right, and ta-da! We're done. Lemon rosemary roasted potatoes. And last but not least, we're going to make some chipotle home fries. And I'm gonna use the fingerling potatoes for this. It might sound like an odd choice, but they make the best little shapes. So what we need to do first is thinly slice our fingerlings. And really, this recipe, although not very similar, was inspired by a chipotle potato dish I had when I was in Dallas, Texas. And it was the most amazing flavor combination, and I just had to figure out a recipe of my own. And as my husband pointed out, this recipe is perfect with some eggs. A little hot sauce, perfect. And really, you want to make sure these rings are pretty thin and small in size, simply because that means they're going to cook faster. You want to make sure that they have room to groove in your frying pan. And last one. Now before I chop my garlic, I'm going to start heating my pan. All right, so now I chop my garlic. And you want about 2 cloves or so. Okay, and we're just going to put them in with the potatoes. Let's go see how our pan is doing. Our pan's heated, so now I'm going to add my olive oil. And you want about 2 tablespoons or so. We're going to let that heat up a little bit, then we'll add our potatoes and garlic. I'm going to spread them all out in the pan. And we'll just kind of let them do their thing. I'm just going to add a little bit of salt. and let them sit there. Don't touch them. Let them get a little crispy. Then stir them around, and if you need to, add a little bit more olive oil. My potatoes are sizzling away. I'm just gonna go check on them. They are looking great and they're almost done. So now it's time to add the chipotle peppers. I minced up 2 chipotles in adobo sauce, and it's kind of hard to find chipotle peppers that are organic, but do what you can. And now we add the chipotle peppers to our potatoes and really just let it heat through about a minute or so. And stir it all around. And you might want to lower the heat a little bit as well. And as soon as those chipotles hit the heat, it just is like poof in your face of this really great smoky hot pepper. I'm just gonna let that hang out and go get my dish. I'm gonna turn off the heat and it's ready to eat. And I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit of salt on top. And there we have it, Chipotle home fries. Take an everyday ingredient like potatoes and look for interesting variations to add some color and fun to your meals. You know, we really are what we eat. We should treat ourselves like royalty, using only the best nature has to offer. So from this natural princess to you, eat well and be well. I'll see you next time.